Hey everybody, welcome back to Studio Talk. My name is Barry Johns and we're going to talk about things that can affect your and my project studio. But first, let me give a little bit of dose of humility. I'm an idiot. This is the second time recording this video because the first time, guess what I did? I screwed up over there in Pro Tools. See me back there? Okay, let me just do this. Hey, back there, I'm recording the audio for this. Well, I had the range selected because I'd exported a previous audio file. I bounced it down, and so it kept all that. So when it got to the end of that, what do you think happened? It stopped recording. That's right. So I don't care who you are, you can screw up. Okay, so today we're going to talk about hardware, and this is incorporating external analog hardware into your project studio. I think this is an important topic, and I'm going to caution you right now. This video is going to be a little bit long, and if you don't watch the whole thing, then you might as well just stop right now because I'm going to give you things to consider. And so before I get started, one of the things that we can do today in a greater way than we've ever done before because of the internet, because of YouTube and some other online forums and things is not only can we learn from our own mistakes, which is the greatest way to learn. When you screw up and you make a mistake, aka what I did back there, you're going to recognize that and try to not do that again. You can also learn from other people's mistakes, things that they've done, maybe areas where they've not spent their money wisely or they've not made great choices, ultimately regretting them, and hopefully have enough humility to be able to go out there and tell people that. And so this is going to be a little bit of that. Some of this is going to be about my personal mistakes I've made along the way, as well as what I've seen other people do. So, we get to a stage to where often many of us consider adding external hardware, analog hardware to our workflow in our project studios. So let's first talk about the basic foundation of a project studio and what that requires, and what most of you have is the entry lane into recording. Obviously, you've got an interface, right, that typically has at least a couple of microphone inputs on it, if not more. Also handles your analog to digital conversion, and then you record that into a DAW, anywhere from Reaper to Pro Tools to Cubase to Digital Performer, Studio One, Luma, Pro Tools, whatever it may be. Whatever particular DAW that you use, and oftentimes the vast majority of those DAWs come with stock plugins. And those stock plugins typically are out there to emulate or reproduce the effect of what historically had been done with analog hardware. That means capacitors, resistors, transformers, tubes, turning knobs, all that stuff that is not done in the digital domain. And there's a huge lure and a huge attraction to being able to incorporate that into your studio. So as you can see now, I've got quite a bit back over here. I've got quite a bit back over there. And if you look back over here, I got a 500 series back over there. BAE rack, 500 series rack back over there. Most of that is over there is our microphone preamps. And so obviously I've incorporated a lot of analog hardware into the workflow of my studio. Now, when you look at all of this, I think any reasonable person would say that guy, being me, okay, has way more than he needs to actually do great recordings. And I completely agree with you on that. There's no doubt about it. I happen to be at a point, I'm older than most of you people out there. I've developed a career. This is not my day job. It never has been my day job. I've been enthusiastic and passionate about it. And I've spent a lot of my free time involved in everything you see behind me. But I have a day job. I have a family. I have 5 kids. I have a wife, all of those things. And so, everything you see here was amassed over years and years and years and years. I just didn't go out and put it all on a credit card. No. That would be a horrible thing to do. So when you're considering whether you're going to go down that rabbit hole of analog gear into your workflow, you've got to ask yourself, am I going to get what I need and what I'm looking for out of that analog hardware? Is it going to give me the return on that investment that justifies it? And I'm going to argue for many of you, the answer to that question is no. You can do great work and produce great music and do great things with just the stock plugins that come with your DAW. Yes, there are other greater plugins that give you the color and the vibe and everything of old traditional analog gear, and I'm not saying anything against that. I own quite a lot of those plugins and everything. But just like you can easily go down that rabbit hole of plugins and buy way more than you need, and end up using it just because you can, and I've got another video on that. You should go watch those out, like how many EQs do you possibly need, or channel strips do you need? Is adding more and more and more really going to improve your recordings, or is it just going to give you eye candy and you just like the look of it? So the same holds true, I'll be honest with you, to some degree for analog hardware. So so we've talked about what the foundation, the fundamental components of a home recording studio without incorporating traditional analog, where there is no digital involved in any aspect of it, and that is your interface, your DAW, your monitors technically are your studio monitors are technically analog, but or at least the vast majority are. Excuse me, I got a cough. Yeah, I leave that stuff in here, so just deal with it. Okay, so. But anyway, that's the foundation, right? Some of you actually just use headphones to mix, and so when you're on a budget and things like that matter. So when you're going down that road to incorporating analog gear, let's talk about the various types of analog gear that most people consider. I think first and foremost, the first thing that most people consider and should consider if they're going to go down that road are elevating the quality of your microphone preamps. Especially if you record a lot of analog sources, whether it's guitar, either electric, acoustic, vocals, piano, drums, things like that. Microphone preamps are going to really help. Having good quality microphone preamps are going to help you a lot over the regular interfaces that come with your average Project Studio's interface. Now, obviously, there are interfaces that have much greater and much better preamps on them, but I'm going to talk about the average person out there, okay? And so the first foray is going to be in microphone preamps. I think after that, for most people, it's probably going to be an outboard compression, whether that's 1176, LA2A, or a style level type compression. Those are typically the ones that most people would look at secondary, and then followed up by that by EQ, okay, and get some various EQ. Now, when you're going down that road, you have different formats, that you can purchase and utilize this analog gear. And probably the most common is your 19-inch standard rack size units. That could be a 1, 2, or 3U rack unit size. Or you can go with your 500 series, and your 500 series are kind of like back over there where you see a BAE. I think that holds 6 over there. And then you have another BAE right there that holds 6 500 series modules in them. And that's a way to keep things kind of compact. And one of the reasons having it compact and advantageous is that is you want to try and keep yourself in that sweet spot between your monitors. You see both those monitors back there. You want your ears kind of balanced, almost like in a triangle between those. That's what's called the sweet spot. An equal distance between the main tweeters of the speaker and then your ears, an equal distance, all three sides of a triangle. And so you want to keep that in there, because if you go off to the left, you go off to the right, obviously that's going to affect the tonality of things that you're hearing. So if you can get something you can grab, and I'm trying to get my fingers in frame, whatever, you understand what I'm saying. Well, you can grab it. Like if you can see back over here, you can see all that gear over there. That's relative. I can easily just kind of lean over and grab and utilize that rack gear there. But when you get into some of this stuff right here, you get outside of the sweet spot somewhat. So that's when I might have to put on a set of headphones or whatever, just to kind of bounce and go back and forth, just to kind of see. Same thing back over here. I can still relatively stay in the sweet spot by just reaching over, because I'm going to develop muscle memory and knowing where those controls are and how to adjust them. Okay. So you want to consider these things and which style format you want to go into. If you want to go 500 series, then you're going to have to buy a rack like that one right there. Okay. Or like the one back over there. Let's see if I can get out. Okay. I'm going to get out of here so you're not seeing. So now you're seeing my mess all the way back there, but at least you can see some of this gear a little bit better. It's more in focus. And so you can see that there. I've still got a few slots open on that one. And I do have it mapped out what's ultimately going to go there. But you want to decide which way you want to go. But if you've got to buy a 500 series rack, that's an initial $400 or more investment in getting a good one. And what you want to watch out for 500 series racks is, can it provide the proper amount of power across all of the units that it houses in it? Some of the lesser expensive ones are kind of a little bit iffy on that. So you want to do your homework on that and don't just get the cheapest one you can find. So Okay, so now we've established the stereotypical. It's not all that, but those are stereotypical: mic preamps, compressors, and equalizers. Okay, and some of those are in a combination of a couple units. I'll go back over here again. If you can see over there, there is a Heritage Audio unit that is a 1073 clone unit where it has the Neve mic, emulation of a Neve mic preamp as well as a Neve EQ. So that's all in one unit. That's another great way to start. You can kind of get both of those at the same time. So once you're going to go down that road, then you've got to figure, okay, what quality is going to give me the right value for the money spent? Because let's just face it, if you've got a typical session, let's say you've got, for a lot of home studios, and project studios are not doing 100 tracks. I mean, some of you are, but a lot of you simply aren't doing that. You're probably at maxing out around 30 or so at the most. And if that doesn't apply to you, then just ignore what I'm saying right now. But let's say you got 30 tracks and you want to put a compressor on every one of them. I would caution you, think about that. Don't over compress. That's one of the things that most people do. They over squash the living crap out of their music and takes the life out of it and all the transients, but that's a different video. But let's just say you want to put a compressor across all those tracks. Well, you can't realistically do that with hardware. Are you going to go out and buy 30 compressors? That's where the cost doesn't make sense. You're ultimately going to put plugins across that and you're going to decide, of the hardware pieces I own, what are the tracks that are going to be my priority? In other words, what tracks obviously when you're recording through microphone preamps and you're doing it at home, you can keep that same mic preamp on everything that you record, assuming you're recording everything in mono versus stereo. And if you're doing stereo, then buy 2 of them. And you can keep that consistency. But when you're talking about adding compression, especially, and then outboard EQ, well, that's when you've really got to start thinking about, okay, where am I going to use these most on what types of tracks am I going to use these on the most? Because typically you might do some light compression on the way in while you're tracking. And I want to emphasize light, if at all. If you're not used to knowing how to do that, I would even suggest don't track at all with hardware. Just do it and then affect it after you get in there. But once you know what you're doing, then you can track with some light compression and have that be able to be much more mixable, much more sit in the mix after you get in there versus actually doing it once you're in. Now, there's a big debate over that. I've gone back and forth, done my own analysis, and I'll share that with you in a separate video some other time. But it's got to be really, really, really light compression. So most people are doing this via hardware inserts. And that's when you're applying that hardware insert inside your DAW, just like you would a plugin, where it's basically telling that, okay, take this signal that's recorded on this particular track, send it out of this channel on the interface, I'm sorry. That channel is connected to the input of whatever outboard gear you've got. And then the output of that outboard gear is going back into the input, returning back into your interface. So as you're playing back, it's converting it from digital to analog out to the outboard device, let's say a compressor. It's bringing that signal back in from the output of the compressor into the interface, and it's going analog to digital back. And so you're able to listen to that in real time as that's being processed. So that's how most people use it. And so when you're doing that and you're thinking about it, okay, what are the typical tracks? And I know I'm talking fast because I don't want this to be a 40-minute video, so you can rewatch it if I'm talking too fast. But what you ultimately got to decide is what are the average tracks that are going to matter to me the most. And I think for most music, this is not all, this is generalization here, but for most music, the 2 most important tracks are your vocal number 1 and your snare number 2. Okay. One keeps the rhythm and one really sets the whole vibe of the entire song and makes or breaks the song. So if you only have 2 compressors, 2 EQ scuds kind of thing, that's where you're going to want to put them, okay? That's what I do. Now, you can choose different. Maybe you're dealing with a different genre and things like that where things are different, or maybe you can afford more pieces and you expand it beyond those 2. After that might be the kick as an example, and then probably followed up by the bass depending on the style of music you're doing. But the rest and guitars and everything don't benefit as much of that in the analog world as it does in the plug-in world. So again, these are just my opinions. So keep that and take that for what it is. You may have a different opinion. You may have different experiences, which is perfectly fine. So when you're going down this road, consider these things and what types of outboard do you want to invest in first? This is before you even develop a plan for what you're going to buy. You want to develop, okay, what am I looking for? What are my priorities and what's my first, second, and third priority? For most of you, that should be microphone preamps, depending on the interface that you have and the other things that you already own, okay? And so you obviously have to balance this upon what you already own as of today, obviously. That's kind of a given, right? So this is assuming that you don't have any. So when it gets into that thing for an average microphone preamp that's really going to take you up to the next level, you're probably talking in the 500 series, probably in the 6 to 800 range, and then in a 19-inch rack, probably the 8 to the 1100 range for your average high quality microphone preamp. Now it sounds like a lot of money, but that's the cost of these things. Now, can you buy a microphone preamp for less than that? Well, sure you can. You've got Warm Audio, for example, makes an API 312 clone that's around $300-400. I think it's $400, I think, if I remember correctly. And I've got one over there. You see that orange one over there? That's one over there. And so I happen to have one of those, and they do a great job of that. And I would tell you, when you get into that in that $400 range, that's where I would caution you to kind of stop. Don't go below that when it comes to microphone preamps. Yes, there are some you can get for less than that do a good job for the price, but they're not going to retain their value at all. When you're ready to sell it and go move up to the next level, you're not even going to get hardly much of your money back, okay? And so it's worth it if you can swing it to save up your money and maybe go to that next level. And that's true of just about any piece of outboard hardware to a point. All right. Now, if you can see right over here, you can see there's some Clark Technique Pultec EQ clones. Now, those were given to me. A friend of mine actually gave those to me. I didn't pay for those. And I'll be honest with you, I don't use them that often. And they're dirt cheap when you buy them brand new. But you can also go on Reverb and look and see what how much they're selling for used, and they don't retain their value at all. None of the Clark Technique stuff holds its value at all, which is to be expected, quite honestly. That's not a dig on them, but that's to be expected in that particular price range. Back over there, I've got a Clark Technique 1176. But you can see above it, I've got some Warm Audio gear. I've got a Warm Audio Pultec EQ, which is vastly superior to this one, in my opinion. So if you can save the money and go to that next level up clone, because all of these ultimately are clones, right? You're not going to go out and spend $5,000 on a real Pultec EQ, okay? Well, today it'd be a clone, but the quality of what the original Pultecs were, you're in the $5,000 range. I don't see you doing that, and I don't see me doing that. I just don't see that, okay? I can't see a possible return on investment in a project studio. So that's why I say you get to a certain point. A certain point, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, I did a video recently where I compared the Warm Audio 1176 to the Clark Technique KT76, along with the CLA 76, the Waze version, the Purple Audio, the MC77, which is a fantastic, their actual hardware compressor of that is probably the best you can buy. It's better than Universal Audio's version. But you're also paying more for that. And then also the Slate version of the 1176. And you can tell there, and in my opinion, you can use your own ears and figure it out yourself. Go back and watch that. But in my opinion, the Warm Audio amongst all of those kicked the butt of all the others, okay? And so that clearly told me that particular level on that is better than the plugins, okay? Now, how much is it really worth it to go from there up to like $2,400 to buy the Universal Audio 1176? Compare, I think that's around $700 or $800. Is it worth it to spend more than double, 2.5 times that? Am I going to get that much more going with an original Universal Audio 1176? Not me. No way. If you're in a professional situation and you're actually making a living doing this, which is almost impossible to do these days, okay? But if you're actually doing that, then maybe. Then maybe. And still, it's an iffy maybe to me because plugins have gotten so good. But I would rather take that money, the difference in there, and buy other additional hardware. And so when you're contemplating what you're going to buy, I think when you're contemplating adding external hardware to your project studio, I think the first thing you've got to understand is let's start picking the order and the things that I see me potentially buying. Not that you will buy them all, but potentially buying them, okay? And once you've decided that, then you want to do like a 1, 2, and 3. What are the optimal, where it makes the most sense, where I can get the most bang for my buck without having to spend a ton of money. And so I think there's plenty of options out there. You've got a company like Cappy, as an example, that makes incredible API clone stuff for a fraction of the cost. I would not even consider original API stuff. I would go with the Cappy stuff first, okay? You've got hairball audio, for example. If you're handy with a little soldering iron and you want to make your own stuff, that stuff's not that difficult to make. And you can build your own 1176 or build your own other components and do it yourself and actually learn something along the way and save a ton of money and really get good, high quality stuff. So, there's a lot of options out there. Do your homework, but I encourage you really think long and hard about buying the stuff that's inexpensive. I'm not going to call it cheap because cheap is referred to the quality, the physical quality of the devices. And there are some out there that offer decent quality and physicality considering the price. And you've got to put that all into perspective. There are some out there that do it, but would it be better to save your money and spend more money and just be patient and get a unit that you're not likely to sell or not likely to want to sell to move up to the next thing? Again, reverb can be your friend. You can go in there and search for the items you're looking for, find out the history of them, to go in and choose only select used and only show sold items, and you're going to see how much that item sold for. You should be doing that anyway when you're buying something used, and I always encourage buying used over new. Always, 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 if you can. You're always going to save money that way, okay? So consider that and see. And if you see something that's selling for $400 and they can barely get $175 for it, ask yourself, why am I throwing away $225? Because ultimately, if you're not going to keep it and it's just going to be a temporary thing in your studio, it's better to wait another 6 months or another year or whatever it's going to take you, depending on your financial situation, to get to that next level where you can look at it as an example, like some of the warm audio stuff that typically holds its value pretty good. The higher you get up in there, it's going to hold its value amazingly well. Like distressors hold their value very well. Purple Audio MC77s hold their value very well. A lot of those things hold their value. The warm audio stuff, considering the price, holds its value pretty well compared to some of the stuff like Golden Age and Clark Technique and some of these others that basically don't hold their value at all, okay? So oftentimes it's about patience. It's better to work with what you've got within your current environment, being plugins and things like that. And then eventually, if you're going to go down this road, then start adding this stuff to it. But I'll leave you with one last thought. Be practical, please. Look, if you're a single person out there and you've got no other bills, no other responsibilities, then throw your money at whatever you want to throw it at, right? But if you've got a family and you've got kids and things like that, you've really got to think about where this stuff makes sense. Because yes, does this crap back here look cool? It does. But hey, I guarantee you, I'm older than you. And I've been doing this a very long time. And this stuff was bought over many, many, many years. And I'll be honest with you too, I've worked hard in my day job and I make a pretty good living in my day job. I do this stuff for fun. It's my passion. This is my speedboat. This is my ATV. This is my fishing boat. This is all those things out there that, that guys typically like to go out and buy. I'd rather spend that money into this. But keep in mind, if I buy a speedboat, then hey, my whole family can go out on that. So maybe it's better or wise to spend it on that. But then again, you know what they say about the first and the last day experience of a boat owner's life. They're both equally bliss because there's a lot of responsibility owning a boat and you don't use it anywhere near as much as you think. Okay, so anyway, I don't want to digress too much. So consider these things. Think about these things when you're looking to incorporate. I'll be doing more videos. Actually, I've got that camera. Hang on. That over there is my Canon EOS R, okay? And you can see it's pointing down at the Warm Audio LA2A clone. And over here, you'll see the Clark Technique LA2A clone. I'm going to be doing a comparison video coming out soon. It's going to compare those like I did with the 1176, compare it with your typical plug-in alternatives. And this one's actually going to include the new Slate one that they're trying to market out there. And we're going to compare that one. We're going to be bringing that one into the fold too and compare it against the hardware. Because one of my main number one gripes when they go out there and they demonstrate hardware and they demonstrate plugins out there on YouTube, as far as I'm concerned, spending 2 seconds of your time just looking at nothing but that and not hearing it compared to anything else is a waste of your time. Okay? Because if you don't have anything to compare it to, it means absolutely nothing. It needs to be compared to a piece of hardware or to other similar plugins where you can hear a distinguishable difference. And then and only then can you judge, is that something I should add to my tool chest? Okay. And so keep that in mind when you're looking at that stuff out there. So Think about that a lot. Okay. So anyway, if you like the stuff I talk about on this channel, I really appreciate it. Come on. You spent this. If you've gotten this far in the video, you've dedicated enough of your time. It's not going to kill you to hit that like, subscribe, notification bell button down there. So you know when I've got new videos out there. You're supporting the channel. You're telling me that you like what I'm doing. And I'll be honest with you, if you don't like what I'm doing, I want to hear those comments. Let me know. Tell me what you think. Go down those comments and just talk, both good, constructive, whatever it may be. I'm all about feedback. So let's talk about these things. Share your experiences with me. Talk to each other about where you've made some mistakes or you've had some massive successes. Get in there. Just remain humble and, stay cool. That's all I've asked. Just stay cool. So until next time, which is, I guess, going to be my next video whenever that comes out, I hope you all have a great day.